Welcome to another episode of the Tough Stuff Podcast.
Be sure to like, love, share, or subscribe wherever you may be watching or listening, because we believe God wants to bring encouragement and hope through these stories. What is up, Tough Stuff?
What's going on?
Welcome to the podcast. Here with my boy Terry Wayne Franks.
Sounds like a race car driver.
It does.
Terry
NASCAR.
Wayne.
He is built for NASCAR. Man, I'm excited about today. If you guys tuned into episode 3 with Mila's story with Breanne Franks, well, this is Breanne's other half. This is right. Mila's daddy in the house.
That's right. I am Bree's husband, Mila's daddy. I'm also daddy to Zuri and Eli, and we are a blessed family, man.
Awesome. One of my favorite families, one of my good friends, one of my best friends.
Come on.
He earned that space, a few weeks, probably a couple months ago now. Our 1-year-old actually had a febrile seizure out of the blue, and out of those kind of moments is when you realize the truth of who you really can depend and count on, because I had no clue what I was doing. So I just picked my little girl up and ran to Terry's house.
And I took her from you, and I just prayed, God, you help me think of something to do. But it was good.
It was like a scene out of a movie. Sometimes you just need somebody, you need somebody other than yourself to either help or to blame if things go wrong, But I love Terry, man. Terry's one of the guys that I'm closest to working, closest to in life. And, man, he just has a story of resilience. And I felt like he fit perfect in this podcast because Terry owns his story. He owns where he's come from, what God's done in his life. And he owns the imperfection.
Amen.
They also call him military because Terry did a little time in the military and a little bit. So we're going to get into that and kind of see how that translated to where he's at now, being a father, being a pastor, leading people, So Terry, kick us off. Where are you from, Terry? OG, originally.
I'm from a little town called Scott, Louisiana.
Scott, Louisiana.
Yeah, everybody knows it by Billy's Boudin.
Boudin, capital of the world.
That's right. And Billy's ain't even the best, but y'all love some Billy's. So.
They call it Boudin, capital of the world, even though I'm pretty sure people outside of the U.S. have no clue what Boudin even is. But they claim that world there. From Scott, Louisiana.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Scott, Louisiana, man. We settled in Scott when I was in 4th grade.
All right.
My dad worked construction a lot, so we moved around a lot, and pretty much was raised my whole life in Scott. Love Scott, and it was just cool. It was me, my sister, and my mom. And my dad would come in, and he'd do what we needed to kind of get food on the table, and so I'd see him on weekends, and so when I got to see him, it was great to just really reconnect with my father. But, when he was away, I was the man of the house, as my mom would say.
Yeah.
And so just growing up that way all the way up till probably when I'm 13, 14 years old, was still living in Scott. And so my dad decides to come and work from home. And we started to buck heads a little bit like anybody would expect. I'm the man of the house, and then the real man of the house comes home.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I've gotten into an argument with your dad before over cracklings. He told me he better not catch me eating no chicken cracklings. Chicken cracklings are not real cracklings.
You can't come from the Boudin capital of the world and eat chicken cracklings. I'm sorry. And so, but yeah, he's all about some pork cracklings. And but anyway, so like we started to work on our relationship. We have a great relationship now. It was a little rough at the beginning, and that took me, man, till I was about 17, bro. My parents were always those parents that they let me go out and drink and do those kind of things as long as I came home at night.
Yeah.
And that I started at 17 years old, man. I would go out. I had my license, and so I'd go and get drunk and party and come home. And
that is a country family, man. So like when I grew up, we did drugs and stuff, but we hid it all from our parents. I remember moving out to Santa Mall, moving out to Ascension Parish for the first time, and somebody was like, "Hey, you need to come over. We're having a party this weekend." And I was like, "Oh, that's what's up. Your parents are out of town?" And they're like, "No, my parents are throwing the party for us." And I was like, "This is different."
Yes, it is definitely different in the country. We don't really even do house parties. We do bonfires.
Yeah.
And so we do bonfires on weekends, and I come home and Man, honestly, I didn't know the Lord till I was probably 18. I mean, I was raised Catholic. I was raised going to church, and going to services and going to mass, and but I didn't really have a real relationship till I was about 18. And so many people know this story. I went to church for a girl, I found God, and so it was a good thing. And I discovered who God was. But here's the truth: is I didn't live my life like I knew Him at all, and I end up connecting with a girl when I'm 18, and I fall in love like we think we do when we're young. And I go ahead and, like a bad guy, I cheat on her.
All right.
And she decides to leave me, which I thought was crazy, but but I did. And she left me, and it broke my heart, man. It really ruined me. And I was like, what do I do now? And coming from a not so healthy home environment and thinking all your hopes in this one person, being immature at 18. And so I decided that I wasn't going to live anymore. And so I'll never forget it, man. I went to the local Kmart, and I bought 120 count of Tylenol PM, and I bought a fifth of Crown and it was easy to get, from certain stores and
country stores.
Country stores, yeah. I mean, we have daiquiri drive-thrus everywhere. I mean, it just makes sense. But yeah, dude, I went and bought that bottle of pills, and out at the park, we drive by it sometimes when I'm in Lafayette, and and I'm with the girl I cheated with, and I told her what I was gonna do, and she wasn't gonna stop me, and I took 109 of them because I dropped some on the way just by the handfuls, and I drank that fifth, and somehow I got back home. And when I got home, I just passed out on my bed. And I was laying on my back when I went to sleep. And all of a sudden, all I remember, I was laying on my stomach. Yeah, on my back. And I remember a voice, and I didn't know what the voice was at the time, but I heard a loud voice that said, "Turn over." And when I woke up, I turned over, and I puked all over myself. And
this got deep quick. I didn't know.
I'm sorry. I told you said I own it. So I do, man. And
I had never heard that story before.
Yeah. And so I had a plan. So many people say, well, as long as you don't have a plan, you're fine. But I had a plan, and I was going to go to sleep and not wake up. And I threw up everywhere. And like I said, like it was yesterday, I remember my mom walking into my room and swinging the door open, and she woke me up. And she's like, "TJ," that's my nickname. "TJ, you okay? You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just drank too much last night," knowing inside what I had tried.
That's got to be such like a strange moment, man.
It is, because just being immature, you think like that's it, that's going to be the last time you go to sleep. And in that moment, I didn't feel like I cared about who I hurt. I didn't care. All I knew was I was in pain, and I wanted to end that pain. And so I told my parents, like, I just drank too much. I think I later revealed it later to them, but I think it's still hard today for my parents to understand, like, I had made that move, and I had decided what I was deciding. And so after I lived through that, it's still, even though I know now that was God's voice that wanted me to, turn over.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough to shake me.
Yeah.
So
trust me, I get that.
Yes.
School of hard knocks.
That's it, man. You got to learn over and over. And so from there, I went into ULL, which is the old school people remember USL in Lafayette, and I partied some more.
You went to college?
I did, for a whole year.
Terry.
I didn't pass one class.
I didn't know that. I didn't know I had a college friend.
Yeah, man. I went for pre-med.
Most of my friends haven't even done college, or they're Zachary Bordis. So there's no in between.
Zach's on a different level, man. Look, I get smarter standing next to Zach. So, but yeah, so I went and I failed everything, and I started to steal checks from my dad. My dad and I have the same name, and so I'm the junior. That's why I'm TJ. And so I started stealing checks from him, thinking I could get past my dad, and he never not knowing that he gets receipts for all that.
Yeah.
Again, being immature.
Just thinking about how stupid we were as kids. Dude. One time I got a DWI. I got pulled over, and at the same time I was I hated my dad at that point. You know, just before God had done so much, and I gave them my dad's name, but I did not realize and didn't think clearly. I was drunk that my older brother's a junior. So my older brother, they didn't fingerprint me or nothing. They put him in the newspaper.
Oh my!
That he got a DWI. He's living in Florida at the time. People are calling him like, Stevie, you didn't tell me you were in town. That's the places funny. That we end up, dude. That the things we end up doing.
That is. It's the way we think we can get away with things.
Yeah.
But yeah. So again, these are such impactful moments of my life. It's like they were all yesterday, and I remember my dad calling me. And back then it was a house phone, so we didn't have cell phones. So he beeped me. I think he beeped me.
Yeah, I had a beeper, man. With the beeper.
Come on, man. I had a beeper. And so he said, "Look, I need you to come home. I want to talk to you about something." And even at that moment, I was like, I don't know what he wants to talk about. Yeah. And we sat down at the dinner table, and he said, and I remember a handful of times where I saw my dad like emotional. And my dad said. He said, "Look, I know you've been stealing money from us, and you know we don't have any money." And he said, "So this is what I'm going to do for you." He said, "You got two options." He said, "I'm going to call the police, and you're going to get arrested because you're doing nothing with your life. Or," he said, "you're going to go into the military and do something with your life."
Wow.
And so, eager to say, it's easy to say what decision I was choosing.
Yeah.
So I signed up for the Army, and that's how I got into the military.
Really?
Yeah. So it wasn't some like heroic story where I was like, I saw these movies, I wanted to go protect America. Yes. It was none of that. It was like, no, I don't want to go to jail. And so, yeah, that's how I got into the military. And
so you went in the military as what? What was your...
I was a private. I was 19 years old, so it was year 2000, and so nothing was going on.
Yeah. And
so I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll go in, get some college money, maybe get serious, and try this pre-med thing out again. When I go in, I want to work in a hospital because my mom had always been in the medical field, so I was like, I'll work in a hospital. So I said, I'm going to be what we called back then a 91 whiskey. I'm going to be a medic. Well, sure enough, I get to boot camp, and everybody's talking about combat medic and how we're going to be in the field. And I'm like, what did I sign up for?
Yeah.
So needless to say, in 6 years, I never saw one hospital.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I was a combat medic. And then on the next big moment that happened was September 11th. We were on the tank range, and they shut the whole range down, and I was a medic on the range, and they brought us all together, and they said, hey, look, we want to let you know that 2 planes have hit the Twin Towers, and we don't know what that means for us, but something's going to happen. And sure enough, that was September 11th, 2001. By 2002 of May, I was sitting in Kuwait.
Really?
And, yep, we sat in Kuwait for 6 months.
Were you one of the first groups?
Yeah, so I was with 3rd Infantry Division. We were one of the first ones, the tip of the spear, where we just need to go and kind of show force.
Yeah.
On the other side of the border. During all that, I meet a girl on an online group chat.
All right.
And so
shout out AOL.
Yeah, AOL, yes. I met a guy yesterday that had an AOL email.
I thought you were going to tell me you met a guy on AOL yesterday.
He told me his email was AOL. I was like, do you still use dial-up? So,
hit me on the AIM, ASL.
Shout out Randy Marcello. That's it.
Was it ASL, age, sex, location?
Age, sex, location. Oh,
yeah. Hit me with that ASL, girl.
So I was a 19-year-old male from Georgia, and so I meet this girl in this Christian chat room, and we date. I drive up. She's in Virginia. I'm in Georgia. I drive back and forth. Long story short, we get serious, and so I go to Kuwait. We make it through Kuwait, and then they send me home for 40 days. Now, in that 40 days, I got married.
Yeah.
And then I left 9 days later to go back to start a war.
It's the American military way.
It is, man.
Military.
You got to get them benefits as soon as possible. So, but yeah, so we go back over, and we're the first ones in 2003 across the border. It was
what
us.
is that like being like? You're how old? 19 at this time?
I turned 20, and I turned 21 while I'm overseas.
Really?
Yeah.
But like being a 20-year-old kid,
Yeah.
Scott, Louisiana, Boudin capital of the world, straight to war. Like, you know, you think you,
Yeah.
even, I mean, I had so many times where we got tempted by them sign-on bonuses, you know, struggling, being homeless, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. But it was always during peacetime. And even when you signed up, it was during peacetime. And what is it like to all of a sudden realize, like, oh, crap, like this is about to get real?
Well, I'll tell you this. My sergeant, he always told me, he said, you know, I kind of went in gung-ho, like, oh, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be like the movies, you know. There's going to be a hero and a heroic moment. And my sergeant would always tell me, he said, I would not wish war on my enemy. He's like, because he had done some things in Bosnia, and I didn't understand that fully until I got a piece of it. And so, yeah, it was a big deal. It was like we did all the videos, I'm sure, like soldiers do when the war's about to kick off. We said our goodbyes on video and all that in case we didn't make it. And so we kick off the war. So we are the first ones across the border with Third ID. There's a huge group of Marines, and so we're the first one in Nasiriyah, first one in the Baghdad, and not to get into too much detail, it was a lot of fighting, a lot of conflict, you know, and so as we get into Baghdad, you know, we can hear things like over the radio, like over the Iraqi news channels, that Saddam has told all his people that we're running for our lives and they're winning. Yet every time we pulled up, we'd find empty tanks. We'd find people, like you could just tell the brainwashing he had on his soldiers. They would walk up to one of our tanks with a machine gun.
Yeah.
Like they could hurt us.
Yeah.
And so it was so sad to see just the slavery he had on these people. And then you would meet other believers, other Christians. Who
so you were a believer at this time. Obviously, you're on the Christian chat room.
Bro.
You're at least that much of a believer.
Yes, I'm at least that much of a believer. I'll tell you this, man. If you want a quick way to God, go to war, man.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, I had scriptures on my tank that I was in, on my little 113. I was reading. It was the first time I ever read the whole Bible when I was in Kuwait. So I knew my life didn't reflect him as much, but people knew I was a believer.
Yeah.
And so we go into this war and we're fighting and we're dealing with all those things, and you're seeing innocent people lose their lives, and you're seeing the things that are happening. And now I'm a medic now.
Yeah.
So not only do I have to fight and cause conflict to the enemy, I also have to bandage those that are hurt.
Yeah.
Now, we Americans follow the Geneva Convention, which means not only do I have to help our soldiers.
Yeah. Wow.
So the same guys, the same guys you would see shooting at you and we would shoot them in the leg or something.
Yeah.
Guess who's bandaging them? Me.
Yeah.
And so mentally, it was hard because you would see your guys, something happen to one of your guys.
Somebody you've known.
Somebody you've been with for the last year. Someone you care about, and all of a sudden you're taking care of the guy that was shooting at him.
Wow.
And so,
which has got to be terrifying. Like, I just imagine bandaging some guy's leg. Like, any moment, this guy is brainwashed and programmed to want to hurt me.
Absolutely,
you know?
It is very scary. You're on the edge. I mean, you have your weapon, but you're just doing your job.
Yeah.
And so we fought all the way through. As you know, we took the city. We took the airport, which was huge. And then we sat in Iraq for all the way till August of that year.
Man.
And so the thing that always sticks with me, I can get past the people who are in the wrong place at the wrong time, or even the enemy that was shooting at us. But the thing that really stuck with me during those months were the children, man.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody brings you a child and they're hurt because they picked up a bomb bullet, or they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the enemy had gotten a hold of them.
Yeah.
Something really, it just sticks with you. And so when we're going to leave, you know, just like any military unit, the Army asks you to fill out a paper that says, hey, I'm okay. And that's what we did. We were the first ones back. So they were just like, hey, fill this out. filled it out. Everybody filled it out.
I mean, like mentally, physically?
Mentally, mostly.
Yeah.
But at that time, man, the Army didn't have a good plan for those returning because the war came so quick.
Yeah.
September 11th, and then we're fighting less than 2 years later. I think the military wasn't prepared. And so they were like, hey, just sign this. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so you now feel invincible because you've made it through a war. You haven't been hurt.
Yeah.
And you go back home. And now I'm going home to a woman, my wife, who I've not lived in the same city with yet. Now we're living in the same house.
Wow.
I'm dealing with, at the time I didn't know, but I'm dealing with PTSD. I'm having nightmares. I'm not sleeping. And now there's a piece of me that feels invincible, so I can go out and drink and do things, And so having to balance all that, it was very difficult coming back.
Not to cut you off, but like, I'm not one of those guys that is like, it's not like I'm not one of those guys, but I'm not one of those guys that's always like, thank you for your service, because I've never really heard it like that. But when you hear it like that, like, I just honestly want to say thank you for your service, because that's wild, man. I've done a lot of dirt, been a lot of wild places, but nothing like that,
I mean, I think about your brother, bro, who came back as well. Like, all of these soldiers, man, they come back and they just need help.
Yeah.
And so coming back, started seeing doctors, started to notice things inside of me. I started pushing people away. I pushed away my wife at the time. I decided to re-enlist because I still found purpose. So I re-enlist for a base in Texas, thinking I'm finally going to be able to spend time with my wife at the time. I'm not going to get deployed. Well, needless to say, I get the only unit that's in the field the whole time.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm gone a lot. I push her away. I drank a lot. I try to numb myself. At the time, the doctors that are at the bases are trying to give me medicine, like Prozac, different things like that. But I kind of pushed that away. Well, that only lasts a couple months because once I get to Texas, I'm out of control. And it doesn't take long that I get my first DUI.
Wow.
It's on base. I think that the cops are watching me. He told me he was watching me. And what I thought was 3 hours was about 15 minutes. And I got in my car. I was so drunk. And I made it a block before they pulled me over. And when you get pulled over and you get arrested on base, you lose rank. You lose money. They can take money. They take everything. And so I was a proud sergeant at the time, and when I lost rank, I went back to specialist, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I just still, again, it didn't wake me up. I kept drinking, kept partying, couldn't stop, pushing people away. I went through 3 rehabs that they tried to get me clean, and I would go home and take medicine. Now I'm getting hooked to things like Ambien. I'm getting hooked to just different kind of ways to kind of numb myself.
Ambien is wild.
Ambien is a different trip.
We used to trip on Ambien, like drink a bunch of coffee, stay up and take it, and like walk in the walls thinking you're walking through portals and stuff.
Ambien is so dangerous if you don't take it the right way because like you're supposed to go directly to sleep.
Yeah.
And I would take it and then I would not remember going to sleep and I'd wake up and not know what I did the night before.
Literally, one time we were at my parents' house. I don't think they know this, but we had done the whole Ambien thing. And as soon as we're like done taking them, there is the news on, and it's this article about Ambien and how kids are dying from taking it. I'm like, we're gonna die.
But yeah, so it's just like you get these. You're just trying to numb yourself until finally, the awakening moment was my wife at the time, and she came to me, and it was really causing her a lot of damage mentally, emotionally, and I had pushed her away so much, and I pushed my family away, everybody. Because nobody could know what I went through. Yeah. And that was a lie from Satan. But at the time, I believed it. And she came to me and she said, I'm done. I'm walking away. And so she moved to Arizona. At that time, I get out the military. And again, I'm just trying to live back in Lafayette, trying to get my life together. I start seeing the VA. The VA gets me on. I finally received the Prozac. They put me on different medications. Well, I meet a girl that I fell in love with in high school, that finally we're grown-ups and we can connect. And so we end up moving to Baton Rouge, and that's how I end up in Baton Rouge, moving in together, working at a hospital here in Baton Rouge. And so, so just trying to get my life straight, man. And I start taking medicine. I start feeling good, right? Because the medicine's working.
Yeah.
But then I realized that I'm good now, so I started taking the medicine.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that from 2006 to probably the last couple of years, that's really was my thing. I would like get on medicine, come off, get off medicine, take off. And,
wait, is this girl Brienne?
This girl is not Brienne.
Oh.
Hey, do you remember though the girl?
I'm sorry,
no, you're good. She knows this girl too. Do you remember the girl I said I went to church for a girl?
Yeah.
That's the girl.
All right.
Except we're both not living for God.
Yeah.
And so that's the girl I end up moving in with. And long story short, we don't last long. And then, I'm working at a hospital. I moved to Hammond, fast forward some more, and that's when I meet Brienne.
All right.
So that's when things changed. And I meet Brienne, and we're working at the hospital. On the first day to get hired, Brienne gets hired.
Yeah.
And so I meet her there. I don't think any of it. I'm 26. She's 19. So I'm like, just got out of a marriage. I'm looking for love in all the wrong places. And she just happens to not be that girl. And so I start sleeping around. I start just partying, man, just really hard. And just looking for love, looking for to be complete again.
Yeah.
And I'm moving with some guys in Hammond. And so that story with Bree is funny because we're at the bar and we're hanging out and I'm trying to hook her up with my friend.
Yeah.
And then she looks at me and with some liquid courage and says, I don't see why you never tried. And I said, hold up, girl. Hold up, shorty.
Brienne shooting her shot.
Shooting her shot, bro. And so I call her the next day, man. And I was thinking in my mind, like, I'm 26. What can I offer a 19-year-old girl? I've been divorced at this time. I filed bankruptcy because I couldn't pay my bills when I lost control. So I'm way older than her, and so we go on a date, what she calls is our first date. I don't think it was a date because it was a lunch. I don't count lunches as dates. I go to lunch with friends. I go to dinner with dates. And so we go to lunch, and the first conversation we have is crazy because neither one of us really living for God, but we both knew God. She was Methodist at the time, and I said, what do you feel God like calling you to in your life, like long term? Is this rehab stuff we're doing? And she said, no, I always felt called to Africa. Now,
really?
not knowing that when I was 18, knew who God was. I went on my first mission trip to Mexico, and God spoke those exact same words to me. You're gonna be called to Africa. And so on our first day, we knew, man, that God was doing something. But again, to me, it wasn't a first date. We were just having lunch, two friends. And so I go out with a different girl that night, which she still hounds me on that to today.
Rightfully so.
And so, but that lasted a couple weeks, and I ended up asking her, I guess, what old school people would say, asking her to be my girlfriend.
Will you go steady with
me? And so we start dating, and this is when God really starts showing up. We're dating, and now I'm turning 27. I know what I want. I've already had the married life. I know I don't want playing games isn't what I want long term.
Yeah. And
so I tell her, I said, look, this life is great, but I said, I really want to go back to church. Wow. And so I ended up finding this church in the phone book back then. In the phone book.
Yellow pages, boy.
Yellow pages. Just doing this, closing my eyes and just picking one. And so
that's how I read my Bible.
Come on. And so I close my eyes, I pick one, and I see Healing Place Church. And
really?
I was like, man, that sounds like a cool place, because when people used to ask me when I was 15, 16, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up, son? I always say I wanted to just help people. Yeah. I don't know what that looks like. I just want to help people. So when I saw Healing Place Church, I was like, man, that sounds like a place that helps people.
Yeah.
So we went on a Wednesday night, and I invited Bree to come with me. And there was a guy who was up in the annex, so we wasn't in the arena yet. And there was a guy by the name of Pastor Mike Heyman speaking on this book he just wrote, The Second Mile. And
Shout out Pastor Mike.
Pastor Mike. And so enough, I still have the notes in one of my Bibles from that night. And so we loved it. We fell in love with it. We got to know Pastor Dino, fell in love with what his vision was. And we just knew long term, like, that we felt like this church was what was next for us.
Yeah.
And so we both look at each other. We're both, we're both at Southeastern. We're both working at the hospital. And I said, look, I really think that HIPCO, Healing Place College, is the next thing for us.
Yeah.
And so
for us, like both of y'all.
I said for me, but then she said for us. So I have to trust the Holy Spirit on that one. So, but yeah, we went to school. Long story short, first year she gets brought on to run the cafe because the arena's opening up. Second year, I get brought on to work at the Dream Center, and that's where my time at the Dream Center starts.
Yeah, wow.
And so working with Derek Smith.
Yeah.
Wild Derek Smith, man. If you know Derek Smith, he's a trip, man. I love that dude. And we both did outreach over at the Dream Center with Pastor Craig and Hope Butte, and great people and great leaders. And we did that for a while until it was 2000 and what year did all the changes happen?
2011, 2013, something like that.
2013. The next big thing that I remember is Pastor Mike brings me into his office and he says, hey, look, moving forward, the Buttes feel like God's put something on their heart. And so we feel like you and Brianne are next. Wow. And so we want you to pray. He said, I want you to pray about it. I'll ask you again tomorrow.
Just a short prayer.
Short prayer. And dude, I remember going home that night and just crying like a baby. Just laying on the floor like, God, what do you have planned? Because I knew we were always called to missions, you know? And back then I thought missions was only overseas, and he used the Dream Center. He used Donaldsonville. I was in Donaldsonville for a little bit when we had that campus. And he just used those places to really show me, man, missions across the street. It's not across the world.
That's good.
And so we stayed there and we pastored there for 6 years, 6 wonderful, incredible years. And love the people of the Dream Center. There'll always be a place in our heart for North Baton Rouge. Yeah. And then got to do ministry with you and your wife and the Wrights and so many others that have poured their blood, sweat, and tears into that place. And so, after that, around 2000, what year is COVID?
2020.
2020.
Yeah, right
2019, they bring me back to run the college.
Yeah.
And then do the college for a year. And then they asked me to take assimilation, and been doing assimilation since 2021. And so, dude, it's just been a wild ride. And I think I look back through the whole story, and all I keep seeing was the faithfulness of God. All I keep seeing, through that whole Mila stuff, which if you go back and listen to that episode, like through those years, man, just God was just like, just be faithful with the next step.
Yeah. And so then you're going to Africa this year, right? On a mission trip.
Yes. So
Terry might not come back.
They asked me and Bree to be a part of a mission trip we're going to Eswatini in July. And so it'll be 16 years since that conversation that me and Bree had.
Wow. That's
16
crazy.
years that we had that conversation that God had called us. But man, we're going to go as visitors.
Yeah.
And just get to see, because truly God has shown me, man, look, I don't have to bring you to Africa for you to do things for me. He's like, I'll bring it all right to your front door. And so it's been amazing.
So I know, just because I have kind of a front row seat, but what was that transition like of just, I know for me, like I forgot to mention it in our last podcast as far as my mental health. I was trying to figure out where it kind of started. And honestly, my back injury was a big part of it, and pain medicine and all that. But really, my PTSD started getting triggered once I had 2 kids. For me, it was just so funny to think about, and maybe this is birth control for somebody, but me having 2 kids in the kitchen in the afternoon triggered me from getting robbed by multiple people. It brought me back, and it brought me this anxiety attack and all this craziness. But what did that look like for you transitioning from, I know you had some time where you ran from it, obviously drinking and partying, but trying to finally actually live like a normal life?
Well, there was 2 big events that happened, 2 time periods that really where I felt like I had been just the opposite, where I had lost total control. The first one was 2016. I was pastoring the Dream Center. I remember I always that guy that would say, when I go on vacation, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I'd go vacation to vacation. And we went on vacation. We went out to 38, just me and Bree. And Eli. And Eli was with us. And we're out there, and I'm so eager to get to this vacation. We get there, and I remember laying in bed with Bree and thinking, and I told her out loud, I said, I'm not happy. I can't find joy. I don't enjoy my time with my kids. I don't. I'm just in a place that's very sad.
Yeah.
And I haven't felt like this since that moment when I didn't want to be here anymore.
Wow.
And needless to say, I get back, and I was going to talk to Pastor Johnny and leadership because I knew, man, they had my back. And I did. Well, it was literally 2 weeks later, the floods of 2016 happened. And if you were around the Dream Center at that time, we served people for 4 or 5 months straight, no days off.
Yeah.
And, as horrible as that time was for so many people, and even our church flooded. Our campus flooded, and we had to go do church in a school for a while. And even in those times, I tell Bree knows, the floods of 2016 saved my life.
Really?
Because it gave me purpose.
Yeah.
It helped me to see serving other people is better, to take my mind off myself. And then the next one was 2021. It was in November of 2021. Actually, it's 2022. And so it was not that long ago, a year and a half ago, where I felt like I was in the slump again. A bunch of things, and that we've noticed now that I know what my triggers are. Yeah, I noticed that when a bunch of things happen at once, that's where I get into my funk per se. And a bunch of things happened. Some things happened with Zuri's birth parents. There was multiple things at work I was working through, and there was just different things. And I wasn't happy at home. And me and you were talking at that time. I told you, man, my kids screaming, it feels like it's constant. Then you throw in the PTSD stuff. Yeah. It brings me back to the children in Iraq who were hurt. And so all these things to where I felt like I was going to lose my mind. I felt like I didn't want, my kids deserve better, my wife deserved better, the church deserved better, and I couldn't give it to them.
No, I get that. Yeah.
And I felt like maybe it was better that I wasn't here, And but I was always open with leadership. They knew how I was, accountability. You and I were talking, but those were moments where that I knew that I needed help, and that one in 2022 is what got me to start seeing a therapist. Yeah, I started seeing a doctor, and let me tell you, if you need therapy and you start looking for help, don't be discouraged if it doesn't come as quickly as you want it to. Yeah. Because I had to fight to get a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've seen a few therapists. You just don't click with some.
Exactly.
It takes a little resilience.
Yeah. So I started seeing therapists, started getting on medicine, been on medicine for 18 months, been seeing a therapist. I see a therapist 3 times a month now. I was seeing them every Monday for a while. And she's been an incredible blessing in my life. And then getting on medicine, getting regulated, just how important that is. And so that's kind of what's been helping me, and obviously sticking close to God, but that's a given, right?
Yeah. But it's not always easy to do all of this working inside the confines of a church where people expect you to run on faith and faith alone. I think about just the mental health epidemic almost that we've been in before COVID, but especially now. I mean, you hear about pastors taking their life on a regular basis now because there's always been this stigma of, you take medicine, it's because of your lack of faith. Or they over spiritualize mental health. Or people will say, oh, well, when you look in the Bible, the only place you see mental health is in the demonic, and it's got to be spiritual. But they don't realize that whenever you make mental health a spiritual thing, there's definitely a spiritual war at fight all the time. But when you make your mental health about a spiritual thing, and then somebody doesn't get relief, it either sends one or two messages that something's wrong with you, you don't have enough faith, you're not praying enough, you're not believing enough, or God doesn't love you enough, or two, God's not powerful enough to push past to heal you, or he doesn't want to heal you, or, and it just creates such a hopeless stronghold for people to find themselves in, because they're scared to take medication, and they're scared because they think they're failing, almost like they're failing Jesus. But nowhere in the Bible did you see the environments that we live in today. Even the diets that we have. There was an article that just came out, 95% of the oats that you get in America are full of Roundup. Like, you have all these things just in our lives that now affect our mental health. We've got to make room. Because I remember just even in my slump, man, it was like I felt like I was trapped in my own thoughts and mind. And I could feel my spirit almost, knowing that God was faithful, that he was good, that he was strong. Yet I couldn't combat what was happening in my mind, It was just so important, man, to take that stigma out of Christianity. We're mind, body, and spirit. We're all three, and you got to treat all three.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I could make shirts, I'd make shirts that say, you need faith and a pharmacy. Come on. I'm serious. Like, you do. And so it is. It's very important. It's important that you're open with somebody. And it's important that you're surrounding yourself with people that can encourage you, man, that walk through it. There's way more men that are walking through what you're walking through. But we just, as men, we don't talk about it as much. And so we do. We got to get out. We got to make it more conversational.
Yeah. For sure. And I think of somebody like you where you've done wartime. And I would never try to equate even my PTSD with yours, but the truth is pain is relative, and just because, like, somebody could easily look at you and be like, oh, of course, it's okay for him to go see a therapist. He's seen war. Yeah. But I've only, whatever, they're been molested or beat by a parent or gone through some kind of trauma. We all go through trauma.
Trauma is trauma, man.
And if it hurts, it hurts. It doesn't matter if it hurts somebody else. If it hurts you, it hurts. So it's just so important to humble yourself, and have the humility. God uplifts the humble,
Absolutely.
Just such an important message, especially for so many young men today. So many young men are so lost behind social media and all that.
You're right. We have access to more junk than ever before. And that more junk means more weight. And so, man, that's why I think it's so important. We work at a church, so we are obviously, we push spiritual accountability. Yeah. That's very important to have in your life, and prayer and all those things. But also, man, I think everybody, when I meet with somebody, I tell them, yes, meet with me once a month or whatever our agreement is. But also, you need to be seeking a therapist, a licensed therapist that can help you, that has gone to college to maybe help you recognize things that I can't help you with, I think it's very important to seek something out to where you're seeing both. And then also see somebody about medication. When I first started, I didn't know who to see, so I went and saw my general physician. And my general physician, I was able to describe those feelings I was having, and he was able to get me on some things. And do your research, There's
just so many dynamics to the brain, the body, the environment, the things that, I didn't even get to share this last week about my whole deal, but literally they still don't know if it was either because of the amount of drugs I've done in my past or from traumatic brain injuries. But really what happened to me is my brain completely stopped creating dopamine, which is what basically the hormone that's responsible for your happiness, your motivation. And it isn't something that I could just pray away. Literally, my brain needed a medication to kickstart it and get it back on creating this. So it's not like, man, we've got to just find that we need help.
Yes.
You can't do it. You got to get help.
Yes, we need and that's why I think it should be conversational. Like, I think, like, when we connect with other guys, I think about men's nights or these different environments we have where we are connecting with other guys, serving on a team or whatever, going on a mission trip. Like, just being, like you said, own your story.
Yeah, being vulnerable.
Being vulnerable with another guy. I know it can be a little uncomfortable, but long term, man, if you want to run the races, like Paul says, and run it well, you're going to have to include other people in your life.
Yeah. I always think about this older lady growing up in the church I grew up in. She'd say, shame the devil, tell the truth. But like, truth is our stories, our weaknesses, the parts that typically we want to keep covered, the devil will either shame us through them and it'll be in our own vault, our own prison of shame, or we can shame the devil by sharing it and using it for the kingdom and being honest and really bringing it out to the light where God's people and God can begin to deal with it and take some of that, your own stigma away. You know, shame the devil, tell the truth.
Shame the devil, tell the truth. That's
Get a shirt.
I will.
We're making shirts
We're
out
making
of this
shirts
thing.
out of this
Hey,
podcast.
click the link in the bottom.
If you need to forgive somebody, get a pharmacist first. No, look, I agree, man. Like, and I think about like how people look at us, right? And because we have a title, they think, oh, well, those pastors don't deal with that. They're at a different level.
Yeah.
And the truth is, man, I would rather tell somebody, hey, look, no, I fight the same demons you're fighting, you know? I just maybe have been doing it a little bit longer. And so I think just encouraging people, man, stay in the Word, and the Word is very important, and looking at those scriptures. I've been encouraging a lot of guys to even write something on their mirror, man, that says, like, write those scriptures to where you can look at it every single day as you're healing and as you're putting yourself in a position to heal. You know, I know we've heard Mila's story, like, just because I give her a shot every day doesn't mean I ain't believing for a healing. You know?
Yeah.
Just because I take that medicine every single day doesn't mean that I believe that God can't heal me.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm gonna put myself in a position to hear His voice, to position to receive that healing. And like you said, with the mentally just getting our dopamine and different things straight.
You gotta fight it on all fronts.
Yes.
You know, and it's not like we just could get on medicine and forget about the Bible, just like you said, man. You've still got to, you know, the Bible says that it is the Word. The Word is the sword of the Spirit. You got to learn how to swing it. You got to learn how to use a sword. A sword don't do you no good unless you know how to use that thing.
Come on.
So you got to know how to speak those things, whether you feel them or not, you know, and it just that also plays into the psychology and the physiology of your brain, that whatever you know, so a man thinks he is, the Bible says. But if you dwell on the good things, you know, it will create more serotonin. It will create more dopamine.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I think, too, as pastors, man, just if you lead in any kind of capacity, you've got to do your own studying, knowing what people are walking through, even though you're not walking through it. Like, I think about us, man, we got to know the difference between a demon and mental illness.
Yeah.
We can't just claim all one side or the other side.
Yeah.
We've got to educate ourselves and know like what we're working with. When we work with people in any kind of leadership capacity, and you're working with somebody that's been through trauma, you need to get the trauma training that's out there to be able to reach those people and love those people where they are. You can't just say, well, I got these scriptures and I'm just going to love them where I'm at. Like, educate yourself. Because I think about, man, all those deep, dark times that I had, that time when I tried to kill myself, like, I knew where the church was. I knew who God was. But the thing is like, I don't need you to just tell me like God's going to take
Bible verse.
Yes. I need somebody to come in the mud with me and say, look, man, I'm sorry that happened to you, that traumatic thing. I need somebody to come meet me where I'm at. And we as pastors, or I say any leadership capacity in the world or in the church, we've got to be able to recognize those differences and be able to help people where they are.
Because when you're in the trench and I come and I give you a Bible verse and you say that Bible verse out loud or whatever you want to do with it and it don't work, you think, well, either something's wrong with me or God ain't moving. You know what I'm saying?
He doesn't love me enough.
It hurts people. It injures them.
Think about this, man. If me and you are in the foxhole, and you know I talk about battle buddies all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If me and you are in a foxhole together, and I've just been shot, and I'm bleeding, and you looking at me, and you trying to tell me what God said this, I'm like, bro, I need a Band-Aid. Like, I need a bandage.
I'm bleeding out.
I am bleeding out right now. I don't need that right now.
Yeah.
Here's the truth is, I can't receive that right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And so,
you can't receive it.
I'm not in a place to
even in
receive
position.
it. No.
Your heart's not open.
So I've got to get to a place where I'm healthy to be able to receive the spiritual guidance that's being offered to me.
I think about is it 3 different soils that Jesus talks about?
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is that you may find yourself, or a lot of people, I think even that is like, maybe it's the Holy Ghost, maybe it doesn't make any sense. But literally, what if you are one of those soils? There has to be a way to become what if you are the hard soil? There has to be a way to become the softer. And that is through the love of trauma-informed care, or having somebody that loves you where you're at, that softens that heart to even be able to be open to the seeds that God wants to plant in your life, that he wants to plant in your soul, in your heart, whatever you want to call it,
And we talk about people who are just seeking help, that are looking for an answer, man. I think about how many people call the church, how many people, people knock on your door and just, hey, I need something different. I need something new. I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And they're looking for an answer. And to be able to meet them where they are and give them the answer, not only spiritually, but physically, mentally, like even the way you eat, right? We can get into this too, but we're not. But even taking care of the temple, all those things, like you said, on different corners, you gotta fight it on all.
Yeah. My third shirt idea, one of my favorite sayings is you can't disciple a demon and you can't cast out the flesh. You've got to fight both. You've got to figure out, what's spiritual,
I think my shirt I'll
what's
sell
just your
you.
Flesh.
Think about this one. Are you ready for this one?
Come with it.
We eating meat and washing feet. Let's go, Baltimore! I think that one might.
But seriously, diet's huge, man.
Yeah,
Diet, taking care of yourself. Even as men. Mentally, we don't take care of ourselves. Physically, most of the time, we don't take care of ourselves. And, we wonder why we find ourselves in the holes that we're in. So you got to fight it on all fronts.
Yeah.
Bro, I had no clue about so much of that. I feel like I've learned so much about you.
Great, man.
Dude, we should name this Combat Medic to Combat Medic, because you are still a combat medic, man.
I'm still trying to heal wounds, man.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to have you, bro. Excited, I don't know. You're one of my good friends, man. One of my best friends, especially
I've enjoyed
now,
this a lot, man. Just hearing even the input you've put in, I know this is something that we're both passionate about, something we care about, and we care about in people.
Yeah.
And so to be able to put something out like this, and hopefully this will get passed on to other people that are hurting. And dude, I really think this is going to open doors for conversations to be had that have needed to be had.
This is one for sure. Do you want to share if anybody, whether they've been in the military and they're open with their PTSD, or they're not, or just any young man, it's not about getting soft and being soft. There is definitely an overboard. Everything becomes trauma.
Yeah.
But man, it's real. And it messes with people and it ruins people's lives. So glad to have you, Terry. Thanks for coming and hang out on a Monday, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever o'clock it is now. But man, just like we always say, my wife's looking at me right now to make sure I say it. Life can be tough, but God is still so good. It's a little weak, Terry.